She thought she was invisible. That's what Elena Rossi told herself every morning as she entered the marble foyer of the Costello estate, her cleaning supplies clutched in trembling hands. Keep your head down. Do your job. Don't make eye contact. For 6 months, it had worked. Until the morning she limped past Marco Costello's office window, and everything changed. Marco Costello didn't believe in coincidences. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. At 6:23 a.m., he sat in his study overlooking the Philadelphia skyline, reviewing shipping manifests that would bore most people to unconsciousness. But Marco wasn't most people. He was a man who noticed everything: the slight hesitation in a handshake, the way someone's breath caught when they lied, the exact moment fear replaced confidence in someone's eyes. So when Elena Rossi walked past his window with an uneven gait she was clearly trying to hide, he noticed immediately. He set down his coffee and watched her reflection in the glass. She was favoring her right leg badly, her usual graceful stride replaced by a careful, painful hobble. And there was something else: the way she kept her left arm pressed against her ribs, like breathing hurt. "Morning, Mr. Costello," came her soft voice from the doorway. She never entered unless invited. Another thing he'd noticed about Elena: she had impeccable boundaries, the kind that came from years of making herself small. "Elena." He turned from the window. "Come in." She hesitated, then stepped inside, setting down her supply caddy with both hands. That's when he saw them dark purple bruises wrapping around her wrist like ugly bracelets. Fresh ones, deep and angry. When she caught him looking, she yanked her sleeve down so fast she nearly knocked over the caddy. "I brought your espresso," she said quickly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Double. Shot. No sugar. Just like you. Sit down." The command was quiet, but Elena froze like he'd shouted. Her brown eyes went wide, darting to the door, calculating escape routes. Marco softened his voice. "Please, sit." She perched on the edge of the leather chair across from his desk, looking like she might bolt at any second. Her fingers twisted together in her lap, and he saw more bruises disappearing under her sleeves. These weren't from clumsiness. These were from someone's hands. "What happened to your leg?" he asked, keeping his tone neutral, conversational. "Nothing, sir. I twisted my ankle yesterday, going down the stairs at my building. Very clumsy of me." "And your wrist?" "Same fall. I tried to catch myself." She forced a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "I really should be more careful." Marco leaned back in his chair, studying her. Elena was 26 according to her employment file. Petite, with dark hair always pulled into a neat bun and brown eyes that rarely made direct contact. She'd been working for him for 6 months, recommended by his head housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, who praised her thoroughness and discretion. But Mrs. Chen hadn't mentioned the fear, because that's what Marco saw now: not embarrassment about being clumsy, but raw, paralyzing fear. "Both injuries from the same fall?" he asked gently. "Yes, sir. Show me your other arm." Elena's face went pale. "Mr. Costello, really? I'm fine, Elena." He leaned forward, keeping his voice soft but firm. "Show me." Her hands trembled as she slowly rolled up her right sleeve. The same bruises, finger-shaped marks where someone had grabbed her, hard. Some were fresh, others fading to that sickly yellow-green that meant they were several days old. Marco felt something cold settle in his chest. He'd built an empire in the shadows of Philadelphia, done things that kept him awake some nights, made decisions that weighed heavy on his conscience. But he had rules, lines he didn't cross. And one of those lines was simple. You didn't hurt people who couldn't fight back. "Who did this to you?" His voice was barely above a whisper, but Elena flinched like he'd yelled. "Nobody. I told you I fell, Elena." He waited until she met his eyes. "I'm going to ask you one more time, and I need you to understand something. You work in my house. That means you're under my protection. Do you understand what that means?" She stared at him, her lips parting slightly. For a moment, he thought she might tell him. He could see her weighing options in her head, calculating risks, deciding whether trust was more dangerous than silence. Then she stood abruptly. "I really should get back to work. The bathrooms need Elena." But she was already backing toward the door, clutching her cleaning supplies like a shield. "Thank you for your concern, Mr. Costello. I promise I'll be more careful on the stairs." And then she was gone, practically fleeing down the hallway. Marco sat in silence, staring at the closed door. Then he picked up his phone and called the one person in his organization he trusted completely, Tony. My office. Now. Tony Marchetti had been Marco's head of security for 15 years. He'd tracked down thieves, handled threats, and once found a traitor in the organization before the man could do real damage. But the look on Marco's face when Tony entered the study? That was different. That was personal. Boss? Elena Rossi. Tell me everything about her. Marco's voice was cold, controlled, the tone that meant someone had made a very bad mistake. Tony pulled out his tablet, pulling up files he kept on all household staff. Standard protocol, 26 years old, lives in South Philly, shares an apartment with her younger sister Nina, works here 6 days a week, picks up shifts at a diner on Broad Street on her day off. No criminal record. References from her previous employer checked out clean family in Chestnut Hill, moved to California, last year. Personal life? Keep to herself mostly. Has a friend from the diner, Jessica Moreno. They grab coffee sometimes. No boyfriend that we know of. But, Tony paused, scrolling through his notes. There was a boyfriend. 6 months ago, right before she started working here. Marco leaned forward. Name: Ryan Fitzgerald, age 28. Works as a loan officer at Liberty Bank downtown. Tony's expression darkened. 2 domestic disturbance calls to her old address during their relationship. Both times, Elena refused to press charges. Neighbors reported hearing fights, things breaking. Then she moved out suddenly, got a restraining order, and he— The restraining order, Marco interrupted. Is it still active? Tony checked his tablet. Expired 3 weeks ago. She tried to renew it, but— He pulled up a court document. Fitzgerald showed up with a lawyer. High-end one. Marcus Chen from Whitmore and Associates. They argued Elena had no new evidence of harassment. Judge denied the extension. Marco's jaw tightened. So she's legally unprotected. Yeah. And boss. Tony swiped to another screen, showing social media photos. Fitzgerald's connected. His uncle is Richard Fitzgerald, sits on the city council. His brother works for the DA's office. If Elena tried to report him now, it would go nowhere. They'd bury it. Marco stood, walking to the window overlooking his estate. Beyond the manicured grounds, Philadelphia spread out before him, a city of neighborhoods, each with their own rules, their own power structures. He'd navigated those structures his entire life, building legitimate businesses while carefully maintaining the respect that came from his family name. The Costello family had run this city's underworld for 3 generations. His grandfather had been brutal, ruling through fear. His father had been smarter, transitioning to legitimate enterprises while keeping the old connections alive. Marco had taken it further: real estate, shipping, construction, clean money, clean reputation. But old habits died hard, and the network he'd inherited gave him resources most people couldn't imagine. Where does she live? Exactly? Tony pulled up an address. 2,247 Mifflin Street. 3rd floor walk-up, no security system. Building's old, locks are garbage. If Fitzgerald wanted to get to her, put surveillance on her building. Discreet. I want to know if he goes anywhere near her. Already done, boss. I had Marco set up cameras this morning after you called. Tony paused. You want me to talk to Fitzgerald? Send a message? No. Marco's voice was sharp. Not yet. If we move too fast, we might make things worse for her. Men like Fitzgerald, they escalate when they feel threatened. So what do we do? Marco turned from the window. We watch. We document. We find out exactly what we're dealing with. His eyes were cold, calculating, and then we make our move. At 2:15 p.m., Marco found his way to the kitchen, where Mrs. Chen was preparing dinner. The older woman had worked for his family for 30 years, and she was one of the few people who wasn't afraid to tell Marco when he was being an idiot. You wanted to talk about Elena, she said without looking up from the vegetables she was chopping. I saw the way she moved this morning. Someone hurt her. What do you know about her personal life, Mrs. Chen set down her knife. Not much. She's private. But I know fear when I see it, Marco. That girl is terrified of something. Someone, Marco corrected. Her ex-boyfriend, Ryan Fitzgerald. The one she got the restraining order against? Mrs. Chen's expression hardened. I remember when she first applied for this job. She looked so desperate. Needed work immediately. Needed money. I thought it was just the usual bills, rent. I didn't know. It's not your fault. Maybe not. But that girl is suffering, and she's too proud or too scared to ask for help. Mrs. Chen met his eyes. What are you going to do? Marco was quiet for a moment. Find her after she finishes today. Tell her I need to see her before she leaves. Not a request. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. She'd seen this side of Marco before, the protective instinct that kicked in when someone under his care was threatened. For all his dark dealings, Marco Costello had a code. Be gentle with her, Mrs. Chen said softly. She's already scared enough. At 5:30 p.m., Elena knocked on Marco's study door with a trembling hand. She'd spent the last 3 hours trying to figure out how to disappear. Maybe she could take Nina and move to another city. Maybe she could come in, Elena. She entered slowly, her bag clutched to her chest. Marco sat behind his desk, and to her surprise, he gestured to the small sitting area by the window instead of the formal chairs. Sit with me, he said, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. Please. She perched on the edge of the sofa, ready to run. Marco sat across from her in the armchair, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I'm not going to fire you, he said immediately. And I'm not going to force you to tell me anything you don't want to tell me. But Elena, I need you to listen carefully. She nodded, not trusting her voice. When I say you're under my protection, that's not just words. It means something. He paused, choosing his words carefully. It means that anyone who hurts you has to answer to me. And trust me when I say that's not something most people want. Mr. Costello, I know about Ryan Fitzgerald. Elena's breath caught. Her vision swam. He knew. Oh God, he knew. And now Ryan would find out. And breathe, Marco said firmly. Elena, look at me. Breathe, she gasped, trying to pull air into her lungs. Marco moved to sit beside her, not touching, but close enough that his presence was grounding. I know about the restraining order that expired. I know about the domestic disturbance calls. I know he has connections that make him feel untouchable. Marco's voice was steady, certain. What I don't know is what's happening now. But I can guess. He's been following you, hasn't he? Elena's hands shook violently. She couldn't speak, couldn't deny it, couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Has he hurt you recently? In the last few days? Slowly. Elena nodded. Is he threatening you? Another nod. Marco's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. Elena, I'm going to ask you one question, and I need an honest answer. Do you trust me? She looked at him then, really looked at him. Marco Costello was dangerous, everyone knew that. His family name carried weight that made grown men nervous. He moved through Philadelphia like he owned it, because in many ways, he did. But right now, in this moment, he wasn't asking her to trust the powerful businessman or the dangerous family legacy. He was asking her to trust the man who'd kept every sticky note she'd left him about morning weather. The man who'd noticed, when she was limping. The man whose eyes held something that looked almost like genuine concern. I don't know, she whispered honestly. Fair enough. Marco stood, moving back to give her space. Then let me earn it. Go home tonight. Act normal. Don't do anything different. But Elena. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my private number. If Fitzgerald approaches you, if you feel unsafe, if anything happens, you call me immediately, day or night. Understand? Elena took the card with shaking hands. Why are you doing this? Because you work in my house. Because you're under my protection. And because... He paused, then said something that surprised even himself. Because someone should have protected you a long time ago, and they didn't. I'm going to fix that. After Elena left, Marco returned to his desk and made a call. Tony, I need everything on Ryan Fitzgerald. Where he lives, where he drinks, who his friends are, what skeletons he's hiding. I want his entire life mapped out by tomorrow morning. His uncle's on the city council, boss. If we move against him, I know who his uncle is. Marco's voice was ice. Which is why we're going to be very, very careful. We're not going to touch him. Not yet. Then what are we doing? Marco looked at the business card still sitting on his desk, the one Elena had held with such desperate hope. We're building a case. We're documenting everything. And we're making sure that when we do move, Ryan Fitzgerald's connections won't save him. He paused. Because I'm about to teach him what real power looks like. Tony Marchetti didn't sleep that night. By 6 a.m., he had a file on Ryan Fitzgerald that was 3 inches thick, and every page made his blood run colder. He found Marco in the gym, already halfway through his morning workout. The boss trained like a fighter, disciplined, relentless, channeling whatever demons drove him into pure physical exertion. Talk, Marco, they said, not breaking his rhythm on the heavy bag. Tony opened his tablet, Ryan Fitzgerald, 28. On paper he's clean. Loan officer at Liberty Bank. Pulls in about 75 grand a year. Lives in a condo in Northern Liberties. Drives a BMW he can't quite afford. But dig deeper, and it gets interesting. Marco stopped, grabbing a towel. How interesting. His loan applications have a pattern. Over the past 2 years, he's approved 14 loans that should never have cleared bad credit, insufficient income, the works. All of them to the same shell company, Nexus Properties LLC. Who owns it? That's where it gets messy. Tony swiped through screens. Nexus is registered to a holding company in Delaware, which traces back to another shell company in Nevada. But I had our tech guys dig through the layers. The money ultimately flows to Vincent Calabrese. Marco's expression darkened. Vincent Calabrese ran the North Philly drug trade and had been trying to expand into legitimate real estate for years. The Costello family had blocked him at every turn. Marco didn't allow drug operations in his territory, and he'd made that crystal clear. So, Fitzgerald is dirty. He's approving fraudulent loans for Calabrese to buy properties, probably getting kickbacks under the table. Gets better. Tony pulled up bank records. Fitzgerald's got deposits that don't match his salary. 5 grand here, 3 grand there. All cash, deposited in amounts just under the reporting threshold. Classic money laundering behavior. Marco's mind was already working through the implications. He's protected by his family connections, but if we can prove he's working with Calabrese, the feds would be very interested. So would his uncle on the city council, Richard Fitzgerald's, been positioning himself as tough on crime. Having a nephew involved in organized crime would destroy his political career. What about Elena? How does she fit into this? Tony's expression grew. Grim. That's the part that worries me. I pulled Fitzgerald's phone records. We've got a guy at the telecom company who owes us. In the last 3 weeks, since Elena's restraining order expired, Fitzgerald's called her 47 times. She hasn't answered once. He's also sent over 100 texts. Show me. Tony pulled up the messages, and Marco felt rage building in his chest as he read. You can't ignore me forever. I saw you leaving work yesterday. New job? Nice neighborhood. We need to talk about what you did to me. You ruined my reputation. Answer your phone, Elena. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I know where your sister works. Would be a shame if something happened to her. The last message had been sent at 2:37 a.m., the previous night. I'm outside your building. I can wait all night. Marco's hands curled into fists. He's stalking her, threatening her family. Yeah, and there's more. Tony pulled up surveillance footage. This is from the cameras. We set up near her building last night. The video showed a dark BMW parked across the street from Elena's apartment. The timestamp read 2:41 a.m. At 3:15, a figure emerged from the building, Elena, wearing a coat over pajamas, looking terrified. She approached the car. Marco watched as Fitzgerald got out, backing Elena against the building wall. Even without audio, the body language was clear. He was in her space, aggressive, threatening. His hand came up, pointing at her face. Elena was crying, shaking her head, trying to pull away. The confrontation lasted 4 minutes. Then Fitzgerald grabbed her arm, the same one Marco had seen bruised and squeezed. Hard! Elena gasped, her knees buckling. Only then did Fitzgerald let go, getting back in his car and driving away slowly, deliberately, making sure she watched him leave. Elena slid down the wall, sitting on the cold sidewalk, sobbing. Marco's voice was deadly quiet. When was this? Last night. About 3 hours after she left. Here. Tony paused. Boss, she went to work this morning like nothing happened. She's been hiding this for weeks, maybe months. Marco turned away, staring out the window at the city waking up below. Elena had walked into his house this morning, limping and bruised, and smiled politely while serving him coffee. How much pain was she carrying? How many nights had she endured this? Get me everything on Calabrese's operation, Marco said finally. Every property Fitzgerald approved loans for, every transaction, every connection. If Ryan Fitzgerald wants to play dangerous games, I'll show him what real danger looks like. You want to take down Calabrese too? Calabrese has been a problem for months. This just gives us leverage. Marco's smile was cold. We're going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Destroy Fitzgerald's protection by exposing his criminal connections, and remove Calabrese from my territory in the process. Tony nodded slowly. That's a big play. If we move against Calabrese, I know, which is why we're going to be smart about it. Marco pulled out his phone. Set up a meeting with Detective Sarah Morrison, the one who handles financial crimes. The cop. The clean cop. Marco's eyes were calculating. Morrison's been trying to build a case against Calabrese for 2 years. She just doesn't have enough evidence. We're going to give her everything she needs, gift-wrapped with a bow, at 10 a.m. Elena was cleaning the second-floor library when she heard voices drifting from Marco's study. The door was slightly ajar, and she shouldn't have listened, she knew that. But when she heard her name, she froze. "The surveillance footage is damning," Tony's voice said. "Fitzgerald's been stalking her for weeks. We've got him on camera outside her building at least 8 different nights." "And the bank records?" That was Marco, his tone sharp and focused. "Clear as day. He's dirty, working with Calabrese to launder money through fraudulent loans." Elena's hand flew to her mouth. They were investigating Ryan. They knew about the stalking, the threats, everything. Panic seized her chest like a vice. Ryan would find out. Somehow he always found out when she tried to get help, and then he made it worse. She dropped her cleaning supplies and ran, not thinking, just moving, down the stairs, toward the side exit. But Mrs. Chen was in the kitchen, and one look at Elena's face made the older woman catch her arm. "Honey, what's wrong?" "He's investigating Ryan," Elena gasped. "Mr. Costello is investigating him, and Ryan will know, and he'll—" "Elena, Mrs. Chen's grip was firm but gentle. "Breathe. Come with me." "I can't. I need to. You need to talk to Marco. Right now." Mrs. Chen was already pulling her toward the study. "Whatever you're afraid of, running will only make it worse." Mrs. Chen knocked once, then opened the door. Marco looked up from his conversation with Tony, and his expression immediately shifted when he saw Elena's tear-stained face. "Leave us," he told Tony quietly. Tony gathered his files and left, closing the door behind him. Mrs. Chen squeezed Elena's shoulder once, then followed him out. Marco stood, moving toward Elena slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. "You heard. You can't investigate him." Elena's voice was shaking. "Please, Mr. Costello. Please stop. You don't understand. Every time I've tried to get help, every time someone's tried to intervene, Ryan finds out and it gets worse. He has friends everywhere. He knows people. He'll—" "Elena." Marco's voice cut through her panic. "Look at me." She did, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not some well-meaning friend or overworked police officer. I'm not limited by the same rules Ryan is used to playing by." Marco's eyes were hard, but his voice was gentle. "He thinks he's untouchable because his uncle sits on the city council. He thinks his connections make him powerful. They do. You don't understand how connected. He is." "No." Marco stepped closer. "You don't understand how connected I am. Ryan Fitzgerald plays in the shallow end of power favors, family names, legal loopholes. I operate in deeper waters." Elena stared at him, seeing the truth in his eyes. This wasn't just wealth or influence. This was something older, darker, more absolute. "What are you going to do?" she whispered. "I'm going to remove his protection. Every connection he thinks makes him safe, every person he thinks will cover for him, I'm going to strip it all away." Marco's voice was ice-cold with certainty. "And then I'm going to make sure he understands exactly what happens when you hurt someone under my protection. But the investigating, if he finds out, he won't. Not until it's too late." Marco moved to his desk, pulling out the surveillance footage Tony had left. "Elena, I need you to see something, and I need you to be honest with me about what's been happening." He turned the screen toward her, showing the footage from last night. Elena watched herself on camera, watched Ryan corner her against the building, watched her own terror play out in grainy security video. "How many times has this happened?" Marco asked quietly. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know anymore. Twice a week? 3 times? He waits outside my building. He follows me to the diner. He shows up at the grocery store. It's like he always knows where I am." "Does he have access to your phone?" "No, I changed my number twice, but he always gets the new one somehow. He knows people at the phone company, I think." Her voice broke. "I can't get away from him, Mr. Costello. I've tried everything." Marco was quiet for a long moment, studying her. Then he asked, "Is there anything else? Anything you haven't told me?" Elena hesitated. There was something else, something that made everything so much worse. But telling Marco would mean admitting the full extent of her stupidity, the real reason she could never escape Ryan. "Elena," Marco's voice was soft. "Whatever it is, it stays between us. But I can't protect you fully if I don't know everything. She closed her eyes, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. He has videos. Of me. From when we were together. Private videos. Her voice dropped to a whisper. He says if I ever try to leave the city, if I ever try to get away from him, he'll post them online. Send them to my family. To my sister's workplace. To yours. The room fell silent. Marco's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. How many people know about these videos? Just him. And now you. Does he keep them on his phone? His computer? I don't know. Probably both. He's smart about backups. He told me once that even if I destroyed his phone, he has copies everywhere. Elena's hands twisted together. I'm trapped, Mr. Costello. That's why I can't fight back. That's why I just endure it. Marco stood perfectly still, his mind working through this new information. Ryan Fitzgerald wasn't just a stalker with connections. He was a blackmailer holding leverage that could destroy Elena's life with a single upload. This changed everything. Go home, Marco said finally. Act normal. Don't do anything different. But, Elena. He looked at her with absolute certainty. Ryan Fitzgerald thinks he holds all the power because he has those videos. He's wrong. By this time next week he'll have nothing. No videos, no connections, no protection. Just consequences. How can you possibly... Let me worry about that. Marco pulled out his business card again, the one with his private number. Keep this with you. If he contacts you, if anything happens, you call me. Immediately. Can you do that? Elena nodded, clutching the card like a lifeline. After she left, Marco stood at his window, looking out at the city. Then he picked up his phone. Tony, I need our best tech team, the ones who can crack any system without leaving traces. He paused. And call in a favor from the FBI. We're going to need federal involvement to make this stick. What's the play, boss? Marco's smile was colder than winter. Ryan Fitzgerald has been building a house of cards, dirty loans, criminal connections, blackmail material. I'm going to pull out every single card until the whole thing collapses on top of him. And the videos? Gone. Every copy, every backup, every trace, before he even knows we're coming. Tony whistled low. That's a tall order. Then it's a good thing we're not playing by his rules, Marco said quietly. We're playing by mine. At 11 p.m. That same night, 3 people sat in Marco's private office in the basement of his estate, a room most of his household staff didn't even know existed. The walls were soundproofed, the windows non-existent, and the security measures would make a government facility jealous. All right, Marco said, looking at the assembled team. Let's talk about digital. Ghosts. The first person at the table was Alex Chen, 24 years old, hoodie-wearing genius who'd once hacked into the Pentagon on a dare. Marco had recruited him 5 years ago, given him a choice between working for the Costello family or facing federal charges. Alex had chosen wisely. The second was Detective Sarah Morrison, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, incorruptible. She'd been trying to build cases against dirty cops and organized crime for a decade. She was also one of the few people in Philadelphia law enforcement that Marco genuinely respected. Before we start, Sarah said, her voice tight, I need to know this isn't going to blow back on me. I'm risking my career being here. You're here because I'm about to hand you the biggest collar of your life, Marco replied. Vincent Calabrese, complete with evidence of money laundering, real estate fraud, and conspiracy. All legally obtained, all admissible in court. Sarah's eyes narrowed. And what do you get out of it? Calabrese gone from my territory, and a lone officer named Ryan Fitzgerald destroyed in the process. The guy stalking his ex-girlfriend. It wasn't a question. Sarah had done her homework. I pulled the restraining order files. 2 domestic violence calls. Both times the victim refused to press charges. Judge denied the renewal 3 weeks ago. The victim's name is Elena Rossi. She works for me. Marco's voice was cold. And Fitzgerald has been terrorizing her for months while his family connections keep him protected. So this is personal. This is justice, Marco corrected. The kind that works when the system fails. Alex cleared his throat. Not to interrupt the philosophical debate, but can we talk about the actual job? Because hacking into a bank's loan system and a mobster's financial records simultaneously is ambitious. Marco turned to him. Can you do it? Can I do it? Boss, I once made the NSA think their own servers were attacking them. The question isn't, can I do it? It's how much time do I have and what's the target priority? Priority 1. Ryan Fitzgerald's devices. Phone, computer, cloud storage, everything. He has blackmail material videos of his ex-girlfriend. I want every copy found and destroyed, no traces left behind. Alex's expression darkened. Revenge porn. Classy guy. Priority 2, the loan records at Liberty Bank. Specifically, every fraudulent loan Fitzgerald approved for Nexus Properties LLC. I want documentation that proves the connection to Vincent Calabrese. Sarah leaned forward. If you can get me that, I can bring in the FBI. Financial crimes, money laundering, real estate fraud that's federal jurisdiction. The city council can't protect Fitzgerald from federal charges. How long? Marco asked Alex. For the bank records? 2 days, maybe 3. They've got decent security, but nothing I haven't cracked before. Alex paused. But the personal devices, that's trickier. I need physical access to at least one of them to plant malware that'll give me remote access to everything. How close do you need to get? Within Bluetooth range, about 30 feet. And I need him to have his phone on him. Marco thought for a moment, then pulled out his phone. Tony, I need eyes on Fitzgerald. Where does he go regularly? Where's he predictable? Tony's voice came through the speaker. He hits the same bar every Thursday night. McGinty's pub in Old City. Meets up with 3 buddies from college. Usually stays until midnight, gets pretty drunk. Alex grinned. Perfect. Drunk people don't notice when their phone acts weird for 30 seconds. Tomorrow night, Marco decided. Alex, you'll be at the bar. Plant the malware. Once we have access to his devices, you map out every file, every backup, every cloud account. Then we delete it all simultaneously. What about evidence? Sarah asked. If he's blackmailing her, that's a crime. We could use that against him. We don't need it, Marco said. We have bigger charges that don't require Elena to testify about something that humiliating. Fitzgerald goes down for financial crimes. The blackmail material simply disappears. Sarah studied him for a long moment. You're protecting her, the girl who works for you. I'm protecting someone who couldn't protect herself. The system failed her. So I'm fixing it. By breaking about a dozen laws. By doing what needs to be done. Marco met her eyes. Are you in or out, detective? Because if you're out, there's the door. But if you're in, I need you all the way. Sarah was quiet, wrestling with her conscience. Then she thought about all the victims she'd seen over the years, women terrorized by men who knew how to work the system, who had connections that made them untouchable. I'm in, she said finally. But Costello? If this goes sideways, I was never here. Fair enough. Alex pulled up a schematic on his laptop. All right. Let's talk about the bank's security infrastructure. They use a dual authentication system with biometric verification, which sounds impressive but actually has a vulnerability in the backup access protocols. For the next 2 hours, they planned. Every detail, every contingency, every possible point of failure. By 1 a.m., they had a strategy that was equal parts brilliant and insane. One more thing, Marco said as they were wrapping up. Fitzgerald can't know we're coming. Everything has to look like accidents, technical glitches, coincidences. If he suspects someone's targeting him, he'll destroy evidence and go to ground, Sarah finished. I know. That's why we move fast once Alex gets access. Hit him from every direction at once before he can react. After they left, Marco sat alone in his office, staring at the surveillance photo of Elena cowering against the wall while Ryan Fitzgerald loomed over her. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for listening today. I know you probably think I'm pathetic, but thank you anyway. Marco stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. You're not pathetic. You're a survivor. And by this time next week, you'll be free. That's a promise. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, I want to believe you. I really do. Then believe this. I don't make promises I can't keep. Get some sleep, Elena. Tomorrow, everything changes. Thursday, 9:47 p.m. McGinty's pub. Alex Chen sat at the bar nursing a beer he had no intention of finishing, his laptop bag at his feet. He'd been there for an hour, watching Ryan Fitzgerald get progressively drunker with his 3 buddies in a corner booth. Fitzgerald was exactly what Alex had expected. Overly loud, arrogant, the kind of guy who talked about his BMW lease like it was a Lamborghini he owned outright. He was currently telling a story that involved the phrase "bitches be crazy," and his friends were laughing like it was the funniest thing they'd ever heard. Alex felt his jaw tighten. This was the guy terrorizing Elena? This mediocre finance bro who thought he was Gordon Gekko? At 10:15, Fitzgerald got up to use the bathroom. Alex moved. He accidentally bumped into Fitzgerald near the bar, stumbling like he'd had too much to drink. "Shit, sorry man, didn't see you. Watch it," Fitzgerald snapped, steadying himself. My bad. Alex clapped him on the shoulder apologetically, and in that moment of contact, the small device in his palm activated. 3 seconds. That's all it took to send a Bluetooth exploit to Fitzgerald's phone, buried in his pocket. Fitzgerald shoved past him toward the bathroom. Alex returned to his seat, pulling out his phone. The malware was installing. 30 seconds. 45. Done. He texted Marco. "Package delivered. I'm in." The response came immediately. "Good. Get out of there." Alex paid his tab and left. He was 3 blocks away when his laptop, running scripts from the passenger seat of his car, began, mapping out every digital device registered to Ryan Fitzgerald. 1 iPhone, 1 MacBook, 1 iPad, 3 cloud storage accounts, iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, 2 external hard drives synced to his home network. And Alex's eyes widened a hidden folder on a private server, password protected with military-grade encryption. "Got you, you bastard," Alex muttered, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Friday, 2:34 a.m. Marco's phone rang, yanking him from a light sleep. Alex's name flashed on the screen. "Talk to me. I found them. All of them." Alex's voice was tight with barely contained rage. "Boss, there are 43 videos, not just Elena. There are 3 other women. He's been doing this for years." Marco sat up, fully awake now. "Names. I'm compiling a list. But Marco, some of these have timestamps from when he was still with his previous girlfriend. He's been recording women without their consent and storing them like trophies. Can you delete them?" "Already?" started. "But here's the thing. He's got the main stash on a private server that's not in his name. It's registered to someone called Michael Fitzgerald. His brother, the one who works for the DA's office. Yeah, which means Big Brother knows about Little Brother's extracurricular activities. Might even be helping him hide the evidence." Marco's expression darkened. This went deeper than he'd thought. Ryan Fitzgerald wasn't just a stalker with connections. He was part of a family that actively covered for his crimes. "Delete everything. Every video, every backup, every thumbnail. I want it gone like it never existed. On it." "But boss, this gives us more leverage. If Michael Fitzgerald is complicit in hiding evidence of sexual crimes, that's obstruction of justice. We could—" "No." Marco's voice was firm. "Those women didn't consent to being recorded. They definitely didn't consent to their videos being used as leverage in a legal battle. We destroy the evidence and we make sure the Fitzgerald brothers can never do this to anyone else." "How?" "Leave that to me. You just make those videos disappear." "Already happening. I've got scripts running on all his devices. By sunrise, every file will be corrupted beyond recovery. Even forensic specialists won't be able to retrieve them." "Good. What about the bank records?" "That's the fun part." Alex's tone shifted to something almost gleeful. "I'm into Liberty Bank's system. And man, Fitzgerald is even dirtier than we thought. He's approved 32 fraudulent loans in the past 18 months. Total value? Just over $8 million. All of it flowing to Nexus Properties LLC, which funnels to Calabrese's operation. Can you package that for Detective Morrison? Way ahead of you. I'm creating a clean data package that looks like it came from an anonymous whistleblower inside the bank. Totally admissible in court. Completely untraceable to us." Marco allowed himself a small smile. "Good work. There's one more thing." Alex hesitated. "I found communications between Ryan and his brother. Emails, texts. Michael's been actively coaching him on how to avoid prosecution. What to say if Elena reports him. How to use family connections. Even which judges to request for hearings. He's been enabling this for years. Send me everything. I'm going to need it." After hanging up, Marco sat in the darkness of his bedroom, his mind working through the implications. The Fitzgerald family wasn't just protecting Ryan, they were actively facilitating his abuse of women. This required a more comprehensive solution. He made another call. "Morrison, I know it's late, but I need you to listen carefully. Ryan Fitzgerald isn't working alone. His brother Michael has been helping him cover up sexual crimes for years. I'm about to send you evidence that will destroy both of their careers." Sarah's voice was sharp with focus. "What kind of evidence?" Communications showing conspiracy to obstruct justice. Michael Fitzgerald coaching his brother on how to evade prosecution for stalking and harassment. He's using his position in the DA's office to protect a serial predator. Jesus Christ. By tomorrow morning, you'll have everything you need to bring federal charges against both of them. Financial crimes for Ryan, obstruction and conspiracy for Michael. And Sarah, when you arrest them, I want it public. Very public. Why? Because there are other victims. Women who stayed silent because they thought the Fitzgerald family was too powerful to touch. I want them to see that nobody is untouchable. That justice is possible. Sarah was quiet for a moment. You're not just taking down 2 criminals. You're sending a message to every victim in this city. I'm leveling the playing field, Marco corrected. Now, are you ready to make the biggest arrest of your career? Hell yes. Friday, 7:15 a.m. Elena's phone rang while she was getting ready for work. Unknown number. Her heart seized with panic. Ryan always called from blocked numbers when she didn't answer his texts. She almost didn't pick up, but something made her answer. Elena, it's Marco Costello. Don't come to work today. Her stomach dropped. Am I fired? No, you're safe. Stay home, keep your door locked, and turn on the news at 9 a.m. I don't understand. You will. And Elena? His voice softened slightly. It's over. All of it. The stalking, the threats, the videos. By noon today, Ryan Fitzgerald will be in federal custody and you'll be free. I promised you that. I keep my promises. The line went dead. Elena stood frozen in her apartment, phone clutched in her trembling hand. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly. At 8:47 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Detective Sarah Morrison, Philadelphia PD. You don't know me, but I want you to know you're safe now. Ryan Fitzgerald will never hurt you or anyone else again. If you need anything, counseling, legal support, protection, call me. A phone number followed. Elena's hands shook as she turned on her TV, switching to the local news. The anchor was in the middle of a weather report. She waited, barely breathing. At 9 a.m., the news anchor's expression changed. We're getting breaking news from federal authorities. In a coordinated operation this morning, FBI agents have arrested 2 individuals on charges of bank fraud, money laundering, and obstruction of justice. The screen cut to footage of FBI agents leading 2 men in handcuffs out of a high-rise building. Elena's breath caught. Ryan Fitzgerald, her nightmare for the past year, being perp-walked in front of cameras, his expensive suit rumpled, his face pale with shock, his hands cuffed behind his back. Ryan Fitzgerald, a loan officer at Liberty Bank, and his brother Michael Fitzgerald, an assistant district attorney, face multiple federal charges in connection with a scheme to defraud the bank and facilitate money laundering for organized crime. Elena sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of fear this time, something else entirely. Her phone rang again. Marco's number. Did you watch? He asked. Yes. Her voice broke. How did you? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that it's done. The videos are gone, every copy, every backup. I had my tech team verify it personally. Ryan Fitzgerald no longer has any leverage over you or anyone else. The other women, Elena whispered. The news said there were other victims. 3 that we found. We're working to notify them, discreetly. Marco paused. Elena, you were right to be afraid. He was dangerous, but he's not anymore. He's going to prison for a very long time, and his brother is going with him. Elena couldn't speak, couldn't process what was happening. Freedom felt too big, too impossible after so long. Take today off, Marco said gently. Tomorrow too. When you're ready to come back, we'll be here. But Elena, you don't owe me anything. You don't owe me gratitude or loyalty or anything else. You were suffering, and I had the power to help. That's all this was. That's not all this was, Elena said softly. You didn't just help me. You saved my life. You believed me when nobody else did. You saw me when I was trying to be invisible. That matters, Mr. Costello. That matters more than I can ever tell you. After the call ended, Elena stayed on her knees in her apartment, watching the news coverage, watching Ryan being loaded into a federal vehicle, watching his uncle, Councilman Richard Fitzgerald, refusing to comment to reporters, watching the empire of protection crumble in real time. And for the first time in over a year, Elena Rossi breathed without fear, crushing her chest. She was free 2 weeks later. The headlines had finally started to fade, though the scandal would linger in Philadelphia for months. Fitzgerald brothers face 47 federal charges, DA's office, in crisis after assistant prosecutor's arrest. FBI uncovers multi-million-dollar fraud ring. Marco Costello's name never appeared in any of the articles. That was by design. He sat in his study at 6 a.m., as he did every morning, reviewing reports. But this morning, he found himself distracted by the empty espresso cup on his desk, the one Elena hadn't brought him because she was still on leave. Mrs. Chen had been bringing his coffee. It wasn't the same. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in." Elena stood in the doorway, wearing her usual work uniform, her hair pulled back in its neat bun. But something was different. She stood straighter. Her eyes met his directly instead of darting away. The constant tension that had lived in her shoulders was gone. "You're early," Marco said, surprised. "I told you to take as much time as you needed." "I know, but I've been home for 2 weeks, and I think I'm ready to come back." She stepped into the office, carrying his espresso, double shot, no sugar, exactly how he liked it. "If you still want me here." "Elena, of course I want you here. But are you sure?" "After everything, I'm sure." She set the cup down on his desk with steady hands. "Mr. Costello, can I tell you something?" "Always." Elena took a breath. "For the past year, I've been living in this constant state of fear. Every sound at night made me jump. Every time my phone rang, I thought it was him. I stopped going places I loved because I was afraid he'd be there. I stopped living. I was just surviving, hour by hour, day by day." Marco listened, his expression unreadable. "And then you noticed me. Actually noticed me, not as the invisible maid, but as a person who was suffering. And you didn't just feel sorry for me, you did something about it." Her voice grew stronger. "You gave me my life back, Mr. Costello. You gave me the ability to walk down the street without looking over my shoulder, to sleep through the night, to breathe without fear. You don't need to thank me. Yes, I do, because you didn't have to help me. I was nobody to you. Just someone who cleaned your house and brought you coffee. But you helped anyway, and I need you to know what that means to me." Marco was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. Not the cold business smile or the calculated expression he wore in meetings. Something genuine, tinged with an old sadness. "You weren't nobody, Elena. You were never nobody." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit down. There's something I need to tell you. Something I've never told anyone." Elena sat, confused but attentive. Marco stood, moving to the window that overlooked his estate. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, more vulnerable than she'd ever heard it. 23 years ago, I had a sister, Gabriella. She was 19, beautiful, smart, studying art history at Penn. She was the best of us, the one person in the Costello family who wasn't touched by the darkness of what we did. Elena's breath caught. Marco never talked about his family. The rumors said he was an only child. She met a guy, seemed perfect law student, good family, charming. My father approved, which was rare. Even I liked him. Marco's hands curled into fists. What we didn't know was that behind closed doors, he was hurting her, controlling her, making her afraid. Mr. Costello. She tried to leave him, filed for a restraining order, but his family had connections, judges, lawyers, politicians. The order was denied due to insufficient evidence. Sound familiar? Elena's eyes widened, understanding dawning. 3 weeks later, Gabriella was dead. Accidental fall down the stairs of her apartment building. But I knew. God, I knew it wasn't an accident. Marco's voice cracked slightly. The police investigated for exactly 2 days before closing the case. His family's lawyers made it clear that pursuing the matter would be unwise. "Oh my God," Elena whispered. "I was 21 years old, angry, powerless." Marco turned to face her, and Elena saw something raw in his eyes, old pain that had never fully healed. "My father told me to let it go. That revenge would bring heat we couldn't afford. That Gabriella was gone and destroying her killer wouldn't bring her back. But you didn't let it go." "No." Marco's smile was cold. "I didn't. I spent 2 years building a case, finding other women he'd hurt, documenting his pattern of violence, connecting him to crimes that even his family couldn't cover up. And when I had everything I needed, I handed it to a federal prosecutor who owed my family a favor. What happened to him? He's serving 25 to life in a federal penitentiary. His family disowned him to save their own reputations. He lost everything." Marco moved back to his desk. but Gabriella was still gone. And I realized something destroying her killer didn't ease the pain. It didn't change the fact that I'd failed to protect her when it mattered. The room fell silent. Elena understood now the real reason Marco had helped her, the reason he'd risked so much, moved so quickly, fought so hard. I remind you of her, Elena said softly. You remind me of every person I've failed to protect over the years. Every time I see someone suffering because the system failed them, I see Gabriella, and I think, maybe this time I can get it right. Maybe this time I can save someone. You did save me. I know. And there have been others over the years, people who worked for me, people in my territory who were being hurt by those with power and connections. I've helped when I could, quietly, in ways that couldn't be traced back to me. Marco met her eyes. But you need to understand something, Elena. I'm not a good man. I've done terrible things in my life. Things that would horrify you if you knew the details. I don't care, Elena said firmly. Good men stood by, and did nothing while Ryan terrorized me. Good men told me I didn't have enough evidence. Good men let the system fail me again and again. You, whatever you are, you actually helped. That makes you better than most good men I've known. Marco studied her for a long moment. You're not afraid of me anymore. I was never afraid of you. I was afraid of being a burden, of disappointing you, of losing this job and not being able to afford my apartment. She smiled slightly. But afraid of you? No. How could I be afraid of someone who keeps every sticky note I've ever left him? Marco's eyes flickered to the small box on his shelf, the one where he kept her weather updates and meeting reminders. He hadn't realized she'd noticed. They were thoughtful, he said simply. Nobody's been thoughtful to me in a long time without wanting something in return. I never wanted anything except to do my job well. I know. That's what made them valuable. The moment stretched between them, heavy and with unspoken understanding. Two people who'd both been touched by violence and loss, who'd both learned that the world wasn't fair, and justice was something you sometimes had to take into your own hands. Can I ask you something? Elena said finally. Of course. Why do you stay in this world? The darker side of things. If you have legitimate businesses, if you're wealthy enough to walk away from all of it, why stay connected to organized crime? Marco was quiet, considering his answer carefully. Because power doesn't come from money alone. It comes from connections, from respect, from the understanding that you're someone who keeps their word even when that word exists outside the law. If I walked away from the family legacy completely, I'd lose the ability to help people like you. The detective wouldn't have taken my call. The tech team wouldn't have existed. The leverage I needed to destroy the Fitzgerald brothers, none of it would have been possible. So you stay in the past. Shadows to be able to help people the light can't reach. That's a poetic way of putting it. But yes, essentially. Marco returned to his chair. The world has two systems of justice, Elena. The legal one, which is supposed to protect everyone but often fails those without money or connections. And the unofficial one, which operates in the spaces between laws, where power and influence determine outcomes. I exist in both worlds. It makes me dangerous, but it also makes me effective. Like with Vincent Calabrese, Elena said, remembering the news coverage. You didn't just take down Ryan. You took down an entire criminal organization. Calabrese was a problem that needed solving. Ryan's connection to him gave me the leverage I needed to eliminate both threats simultaneously. Marco's expression hardened. Calabrese was running drugs in my territory, using violence to intimidate people under my protection. He'd been a problem for months. The Fitzgerald situation gave me the perfect excuse to move against him while appearing to simply help law enforcement. Two birds, one stone. Exactly. And now my territory is cleaner, my people are safer, and several women, including you, are free from men who thought their connections made them untouchable. He paused. That's the value of operating in both worlds, Elena. I can use illegal methods to gather evidence, then hand it to legal authorities to prosecute. The system gets justice, and I get peace in my territory. Elena shook her head slowly, a small smile on her lips. You're far more complicated than I ever imagined, Mr. Costello. Most people are, once you look beneath the surface. A knock interrupted them. Mrs. Chen poked her head in. Marco, you have a call from... She stopped, seeing Elena. Her face broke into a warm smile. Elena, you're back. Just got here. Good. This house has been too quiet without you. Mrs. Chen turned to Marco. The call can wait. I'll tell them you're in a meeting. After she left, Elena stood. I should get to work. The library probably needs Elena. Marco's voice stopped her. One more thing. She turned back. You asked me 2 weeks ago why I was doing all of this. I gave you practical answers, protection, responsibility, business strategy. But the real answer is simpler. He met her eyes. You left me notes about thunderstorms and cold fronts. Small kindnesses that you didn't have to do. You cared about details that didn't matter to your job, but mattered to someone's day. That kind of genuine consideration is rare in my world, and when I realized someone who possessed it was being terrorized, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. I just wanted to be helpful. You were, more than you know. Marco stood, moving around his desk. And now I need you to do something for me. Anything. Stop calling me Mr. Costello. My friends call me Marco. I think we've moved past formalities, don't you? Elena smiled through her tears. I'll try. But old habits are hard to break. Then break them slowly. I'm patient. As she turned to leave, Marco called out one more time. Elena, if you ever need anything, not just protection, but anything at all, you come to me. No more suffering in silence. No more trying to handle impossible situations alone. Understood? Understood. And Marco? She used his first name deliberately, testing how it felt. Thank you. For everything. For seeing me. For believing me. For giving me my life back. You're welcome. Now go, those books won't dust themselves. 3 months later, the Philadelphia Inquirer ran a small article on page 6 that most people probably missed. Fitzgerald brothers sentenced in federal fraud case. Ryan Fitzgerald, former loan officer at Liberty Bank, was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for bank fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. His brother, Michael Fitzgerald, received 12 years for obstruction of justice and using his position in the district attorney's office to conceal criminal activity. The case, which began with an anonymous tip to federal authorities, uncovered a sophisticated scheme involving fraudulent loans, organized crime connections, and a pattern of abuse that investigators say spanned several years. This case demonstrates that no one is above the law, said federal prosecutor James Mitchell. No amount of family connections or political influence can protect criminals from facing justice. The convictions have led to significant reforms in both the district attorney's office and Liberty Bank's loan approval processes. Elena read the article in Marco's study, where she'd brought his morning coffee double shot, no sugar. They got less time than I expected, she said quietly. Federal sentencing guidelines, Marco replied, not looking up from his laptop. But 18 years is a long time. Ryan will be 46 when he gets out. His life as he knew it is over. Good. The word came out harder than Elena intended, but she didn't apologize for it. Marco finally looked at her, noting the steel in her voice. Over the past 3 months, he'd watched Elena transform. The fear that had made her small and cautious was gone, replaced by quiet confidence. She still left him weather notes. Old habits died hard, but now they came with jokes, observations, little moments of humor that made him smile. How's your sister doing? He asked. Nina's good. She started therapy last month, your therapist recommendation, the one who specializes in secondary trauma. It's helping. Elena set down the coffee cup. She was so angry at first. Angry at Ryan, angry at me for not telling her how bad it was, angry at herself for not seeing the signs, but she's working through it. And you? I'm better. Some days are harder than others. I still check over my shoulder sometimes, even though I know he's in prison, but I'm sleeping through the night now. That's progress. It is. Marco closed his laptop. Elena, I wanted to talk to you about something. She tensed slightly old reflexes. Is something wrong? No. Actually, I have a proposition for you. He stood, moving to the window. I'm expanding my legitimate business operations. Opening a new division focused on real estate management and property development. I need someone to help run the office, scheduling, communications, client relations. Someone detail-oriented and trustworthy. Elena's eyes widened. You're offering me a promotion? I'm offering you an opportunity. Better pay, normal business hours, your own office. You'd still work for me, but in a professional capacity rather than household staff. He turned to face her. You're overqualified for cleaning houses, Elena. You have a business degree from Temple that you've never used because you needed immediate income after leaving Ryan. How did you know about? I know everything about everyone who works for me. It's a habit, Marco's expression softened. You're smart, organized, and you understand discretion. Those are valuable qualities in my organization. So, what do you say? Elena stared at him, overwhelmed. 3 months ago, she'd been terrified, trapped, barely surviving. Now Marco Costello, one of the most powerful men in Philadelphia, was offering her a real career. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Say you'll think about it. Say anything except no. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you keep helping me? You saved my life, destroyed the man who terrorized me, and now you're offering me a job that's probably way beyond my experience level. Why? Marco was quiet for a moment. Do you remember what I told you about my sister? About Gabriella? Of course. I couldn't save her. That's something I have to live with every day. But I can save others. I can give them opportunities that she never got to have. His voice was soft but firm. You survived something that breaks most people, Elena. You fought to protect yourself and your sister with everything you had. That kind of strength shouldn't be wasted cleaning houses. No offense to Mrs. Chen and the excellent work she does. Elena laughed despite herself. None taken, I'm sure. So yes, I'm offering you this job because you're qualified. But I'm also offering it because people like you deserve second chances. Deserve to rebuild after someone tried to destroy them. And because... He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because in helping you become the person you were meant to be, I'm honoring the person my sister never got to become. Tears filled Elena's eyes. You really loved her. I did. I still do. Marco moved back to his desk. So what do you say, will you take the job? Elena wiped her eyes, straightening her shoulders. Yes, I'll take it. But on one condition. Which is, you let me keep leaving you weather notes. I know they're silly, but they're not silly. Marco's expression was almost fond. They're thoughtful. And yes, you can keep leaving them. Though now you can do it from your own office instead of the supply closet. When do I start? Monday. Which gives you the weekend to process the fact that you just accepted a job working in the organized crime-adjacent business world of Marco Costello. He said it lightly, but there was a serious undertone. Elena, you understand what you're agreeing to, right? This isn't just a regular office job. You'll be working closely with me, which means seeing aspects of my business that exist in legal gray areas. I understand. And honestly, Elena met his eyes with complete sincerity. After everything I've been through, legal gray areas don't scare me, especially not when the man navigating them is someone who actually protects people, instead of hurting them. I'm not a hero, Elena. No, she agreed. You're something better. You're someone who gets things done when heroes fail. 6 months later, the reforms Marco had promised and continued to unfold. The healthcare initiative for port workers had expanded to all his business operations. 3 more women had come forward about Ryan Fitzgerald's abuse, not for prosecution, since he was already in prison, but for closure and the victim support fund Marco had quietly established. Detective Sarah Morrison had been promoted to head of the financial crimes unit. She still called Marco occasionally when she needed information that couldn't be obtained through legal channels. Their relationship was complicated, but effective. Vincent Calabrese's organization had collapsed completely. Several of his lieutenants were serving time. His territory had been absorbed by operations that, while not entirely clean, were significantly less violent. And Elena Rossi had become one of Marco's most trusted employees, running his property management division with efficiency and discretion that impressed even the most skeptical members of his organization. On a Wednesday afternoon, Marco was reviewing contracts when Elena knocked and entered his office. You have a visitor, she said, her tone suggesting he wasn't going to like this. Who? Richard Fitzgerald, the city councilman, Ryan and Michael's uncle. Marco's expression darkened. What does he want? He says he wants to thank you. That should be interesting. Send him in. Richard Fitzgerald entered the office looking like a man who'd aged a decade in 6 months. The confidence and political shine were gone, replaced by exhaustion and something that might have been shame. Mr. Costello, thank you for seeing me. Marco didn't stand or offer a handshake. You have 5 minutes. I deserve that. Richard sat down without being invited, a breach of etiquette that in other circumstances might have gotten him thrown out. I'm not here to make excuses or ask for favors. I'm here because I owe you the truth. I'm listening. I knew, Richard said quietly. Not everything, but enough. I knew Ryan had problems, with anger. I knew Michael was covering for him. I told myself it was family loyalty, that boys will be boys, that Ryan just needed time to mature. His voice cracked. I was wrong. Dangerously, criminally wrong. Marco's expression didn't change. Is there a point to this confession? The point is that you did what I should have done years ago. You stopped my nephews before they could hurt anyone else. You brought them to justice when I was too cowardly and too concerned about my political career to do it myself. Richard met Marco's eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that what you did, however you did it, was right. And I'm grateful. Grateful, Marco repeated, his voice cold. You're grateful that I had to step in and do your job? That I had to protect women your family was terrorizing because you were too busy protecting your political reputation? Yes. Richard didn't flinch. I know how that sounds, but it's the truth. Marco stood, moving around his desk to loom over the councilman. Your nephews destroyed lives, Councilman Fitzgerald. Multiple women suffered because your family's connections made them feel untouchable. One of those women worked for me. She came to my house every day in pain, physical and emotional, because your nephew was stalking and threatening her, and the system you're part of failed her. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what it's like to be so afraid that you can't sleep? So trapped that you work 3 jobs trying to scrape together enough money to maybe, possibly escape? So hopeless that you've accepted suffering as your permanent reality? Richard's face was pale. No, I don't. But I'm trying to. I've been meeting with victims' advocates, learning about the systematic failures that allowed my nephews to operate for so long. I've introduced legislation to close the loopholes they exploited. I'm trying to make amends. Amends don't undo the damage. No, they don't. Richard stood. But they're all I can offer. That and my resignation from city council, which I'll be announcing next week. That got Marco's attention. You're stepping down? I can't in good conscience hold public office after failing so spectacularly to protect the public from my own family. The position should go to someone with integrity. Richard moved toward the door. Thank you for your time, Mr. Costello. And thank you for doing what I should have done. After he left, Elena entered quietly. That was unexpected. Very. Marco returned to his desk, processing the conversation. He's either genuinely remorseful or putting on an excellent performance. Does it matter which? I suppose not. The outcome is the same. He's leaving office. His nephews are in prison, and the victims are getting some measure of justice. Marco looked at Elena. Does seeing him upset you? Honestly, no. He's a broken man who finally realized the cost of his cowardice. That's punishment. Enough. Elena set down a folder on his desk. The Harper property deal closed this morning. Contracts are signed, money transferred. We now own 6 more apartment buildings in South Philly. Good. Implement the renovation plan, updated security systems, new locks, better lighting. And Elena? Keep the rents at current levels for existing tenants. That's not going to maximize profits. I'm not interested in maximizing profits from people who are barely making rent. I'm interested in providing safe, affordable housing in my territory. Marco opened the folder, reviewing the contracts. People who feel secure in their homes don't turn to desperate measures. They build stable lives. That's worth more than rental income. Elena smiled. You know, for a allegedly ruthless crime boss, you're surprisingly civic-minded. Don't let word get out. It'll ruin my reputation. Your secret's safe with me. She turned to leave, then paused. Marco, thank you. Again. For everything. For the job. For believing in me. For showing me that power can be used to protect instead of hurt. You don't need to keep thanking me, Elena. I know. But I'm going to anyway. She smiled. It's in my nature to be thoughtful, remember? Someone once told me that was valuable. After she left, Marco sat alone in his study, thinking about the strange path his life had taken. 23 years ago, he'd lost his sister to a violent man protected by connections. That loss had shaped everything: his decision to stay in the family business, his code about protecting the vulnerable, his willingness to operate outside the law when the law failed those who needed it most. Gabriella's death had created a void in his life that nothing could fill. But helping others, Elena, the port workers, the women who'd been terrorized by the Fitzgerald brothers, eased the pain slightly. Each person he protected was a small redemption, a tiny step toward balancing scales that would never truly be balanced. His phone buzzed. A text from Tony. Calabrese's former territory is stable. No major conflicts. Your reputation as someone who doesn't tolerate predators is spreading. We're getting fewer problems overall. Marco smiled slightly. Fear was a tool, but so was respect. The criminal underworld was learning that Marco Costello's territory was different, safer for civilians, harder for those who preyed on the vulnerable, protected by someone who actually kept his word. It wasn't redemption. He'd done too much, hurt too many people for that. But it was something, a purpose that honored his sister's memory while protecting others from the same fate. His computer dinged with a new email. The subject line read, "Weather update." Marco opened it, smiling before he even read the contents. Heavy rain expected this afternoon. Thunderstorms by 3 p.m. Bring the Lexus, not the Maserati. The west parking lot floods. Also, the Harper contracts are filed, and the new security installations are parkinsast and scheduled for next week. Coffee's getting cold. Marco stood, stretching tension from his shoulders. The sun was rising over Philadelphia, painting the skyline in shades of gold and orange. Somewhere in this city, people were waking up safer because of decisions he'd made, actions he'd taken, predators he'd removed. He couldn't save everyone, couldn't prevent every injustice or right every wrong, but he could protect the people in his sphere of influence, could use his power, legal and otherwise, to ensure that his territory was a place where the vulnerable had someone watching over them. It wasn't heroism, but in a world full of people who looked the other way, who prioritized their own comfort over others' safety, maybe it was enough. Marco Costello picked up his coffee finally at the perfect drinking temperature and got back to work. There were contracts to review, properties to manage, and an empire to run. But first, he pulled out a sticky note and wrote, "Thanks for the weather update. The west parking lot thanks you too. 4M." He stuck it to Elena's office door on his way past, smiling at the thought of her finding it. Small kindnesses, thoughtful gestures, protection offered and gratitude acknowledged. In the complicated, morally gray world Marco inhabited, these simple acts of humanity mattered more than most people realized. They were the difference between existing and living, between surviving and thriving, between darkness and light. And in the end, that made all the difference. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel.